Actually, there was no particular reason as such. It was not as if there was some plan, big plan, and some business going on here or something like that. It may sound strange, but I just felt after 2 years of being in the US that I would like to work and live in India and not in the US. And with that only reason I came back. And the good thing was that my parents, my mother is here, they never, said a word about that. They never discouraged me. In fact, they were quite happy that I was coming back immediately after 2 years. Maybe they knew something that we didn't, that in the next 20 years, India was going to go phenomenally. So maybe that's why they were happy. Anyways, that was the coming back from the US part. That was a little bit of a different track that I chose. And then I came here and joined, like you said, TCS. That was probably the only company around at that time if you wanted to be in software. And of course, I was a mechanical engineer in my master's as well. But in that period, I think everybody, whether it was a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer, everybody joined software. So that's how I joined TCS.
Having a plum job at TCS. Now, plum is very relative if you look at that time. What made you think of taking a plunge? What was the thought process? How it worked in your favor? What did not work?
That is the big question, isn't it, always? How do you take the first plunge? Actually, TCS was a very good job, I thought. I joined their CAD/CAM group, and I think I was the 10th or 11th person to join that group. I am sure that group must be 10,000 people now, but when I joined there, I was 10th or 11th. And because of that, we got a lot of opportunities. Even as a fresher, I got to lead some projects. I got to interact with customers, even European customers, American customers, and so on. I also spent 1 year in what is called the TRDDC, the Design and Development Center, and that was a great experience. So what happened was, in those I was there just for about 2 years, I got to really work with some very senior people on the customer side to present to them. And I still remember EC Subbarao used to head TRDDC, and he used to go through our reports line by line and make corrections and so on. He used to be there for our dry runs, for our presentations and so on. I think I benefited a lot in terms of that business communication part. In fact, I felt very confident at that time. I felt I was ready to take the plunge, as you're saying. Of course, I was not ready, but I felt I was ready at that time. From day one, I think when I joined TCS, the plan was that I would like to do something like this. And I think when I actually took the plunge, it was really a very small opportunity. One project that I had got, which I took up. And the thinking that time was, the work that I was doing with TCS was programming on CAD platforms. And these are all high-end platforms. And the work that I got outside as a project was on the AutoCAD platform. And I felt that AutoCAD being so popular, that must be the business. Certainly if you ask me if there was a business plan or anything like that, there was nothing like that. In fact, looking back, I feel if I had made that business plan, I would probably still be in a job. I wouldn't have taken a plunge. The other thing I definitely remember at that time thinking was that I wanted to start my business before I got married. So that was another thing I definitely had in mind. With the simple thinking that when I get married, my wife must know what I'm trying to do here. And so my wife Srigda is also here. If anything, she was even more keen on entrepreneurship. And that, I think, kept us going in those initial very tough years, because otherwise I think it can get very difficult, right? I mean, you get married, with family and all that, and then taking the plunge is probably kind of difficult. So I don't know if I answered that question, but I wanted to take the plunge. I got the smallest of opportunities. I took the plunge, and I did some things which, in hindsight, turned out quite right, like getting into business before married.
So for slight diversion, for benefit of audience, we all come across people, let's say 80-90% of the people want to start their venture, but in reality, maybe a single digit of percent people actually take the plunge, right? So, are you made different? What made you take the plunge? Why others cannot take that plunge?
That percentage is small, I agree with that. And I wonder if that percentage changes from country to country or changes from time to time. Was it better or worse earlier and now? I think by definition, that people who want to do entrepreneurship will be a small percentage. So I wonder if there is anything to worry about that. There will be some people who would want to, because it's a hard life. There are so many barriers these days for people who are in good cushy jobs to leave that and get into entrepreneurship. I don't think it's that easy a decision. So actually I had one thought on that. When I became the charter member, there is a statement of intent that has to be written. And one of the things I had mentioned there was, or rather the thing that I had mentioned there was, can we, so the thinking behind that was this, that we might get people interested in entrepreneurship if we show them some really good, interesting problems. So right now what we do at TiE is people have their problems, they have their solutions also, and we are helping them going forward. But you asked the question, how do you get people into entrepreneurship? How do you get them take the plunge? Maybe the answer to that is if we show them some really good problems. Because one of the thoughts that I also have is entrepreneurs are young, a lot of them are young, and they're very savvy, very enthusiastic. But let's say with their experience, if they look at some problems that only they are aware of, then they're probably looking at a very small subset of problems. And small problems, even if you solve them, is small success. So if there are big problems that needed to be solved, we can offer them a boutique of bigger problems, then maybe they can get excited about that. I do believe that entrepreneurs do get excited about the problem that they are solving. Money and everything comes later, but the problem they have to get interested about or excited about. So I think that could be one way of getting new people to take the plunge into entrepreneurship.
I think you should have answered that question looking at Vishwas.
I did.
Alright, so let's move on to your part of story. First venture, proposal. Right? Can you tell us how did you got started? What were the teething issues? What worked? What did not work? You ran that for almost 5 years, right?
The first one was actually CAD/CAM Caroline.
Okay.
So I came out of TCS with the CAD/CAM background, and that's how I mentioned the AutoCAD project that I got. And then basically it was development of systems on top of AutoCAD. So at that time, I don't know if people are aware, there was a language called AutoLisp that AutoCAD used to use, and it was a list processing language. And believe it or not, I've written like 50,000 line systems just using AutoLisp. Because people were using AutoLisp, they didn't have all these high-end languages at that time, and they needed all these systems on top of AutoCAD. So which is what we did for engineering project companies like Crook. It was called Bakawulf at that time, Elecon in Gujarat, and Thermax, and so on. These kind of engineering project companies, I used to do these things. So in fact, we got so good at this AutoLisp thing, we actually wrote an AutoLisp debugger. And Autodesk registered it as a product that would go along with Autodesk. So you could order for that debugger along with Autodesk. Of course, later on the VB came and all that. Then there was no need for the disk debugger. But that kind of depth we had gone into the Autodesk for CAD development part. So that was the CAD business that was I was in. And I have to say, it was intellectually it is extremely satisfying. So do solve this, write these big programs and do that, and you're at that age you really get kicked by those kind of things. And of course, it was also, of course it was sustaining also. So in that sense, it was going on, quite well. You think that you're a mechanical engineer, and then you are, into this CAD, which is a new field, and so you do that kind of work. It was very exciting at that point. What happened? You asked about Prabodhan, and this was just a proprietary thing. The small company, I think 3 or 4 people with also worked in that for some time. And we did these projects for these people, and we were maintaining ourselves quite nicely. Prabodhan idea came in terms of getting to the growth phase. So why don't we pull together resources, 2-3 different businesses come together and get this going on a large scale. The name Prabodhan comes from Jnana Prabodhini, which school I went to, and the other 2 partners also came from Jnana Prabodhini. And 3 of us started this company with the full support of Jnana Prabodhini as an organization. So on our board, there were other senior Jnana Prabodhini members, and that is how that company got started. Of course, I was looking at the CAD/CAM business, and somebody was looking at the networking business, and so on and so forth. So that was the kind of structure that we had in place. And I think CAD/CAM Carolina was about 5 years. In '97, we started Prabodhan, and that also went for about 5 or 6 years. And it reasonably grew to about 100 people and so on and so forth. So that is where we got some scale. So that was the question about Prabodhan. Yeah, sure.
So